Entertalk Radio, you're in to all things music.
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. And I am Scott, your host, a man who is really enjoying some Winter Olympics, I got to say. Really enjoying the amazing run by Shaun White for gold this week, and just all the Americans, Chloe Kim and the rest of the crew, just really getting it done over there. And with me in the booth is Paul B. Paul, have you been watching the big Olympic thing?
Not a lot. I got to watch a little bit last night. I saw the Shaun White thing. I saw some slalom competitions. Yeah. Pretty cool. I haven't seen a whole ton of it, but go America.
Dude, how cool was the Shaun White thing too? I mean, and even by Hollywood movie standards, that was just ridiculous. The fact that, he's down to his last run, he's in second place, I mean, it's just like the music builds and it's like the perfect ending. And if that ends his Olympic career, in terms of that event, then,
is this going to be the last?
It's a great way to go out.
He's competing in the Olympics, you think?
Well, he's getting pretty old, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, by Olympic standards, not
right.
by people standards, but by Olympic standards, he definitely is.
Yeah.
And I think, it's kind of hard to, it's hard to beat if you can go out on top, right? You don't want to be the person that hangs out a little longer.
Yeah,
and that's true of like the NFL and a lot of things like that. I think it's, it's a kind of a storybook ending, for Shaun White, if it is in fact the end, but just an amazing run. And it makes you, you're just inspired by, first of all, the jumps he was doing was he was 18 feet high off of the half pipe, which would make a normal person just being that high in the air and then coming back down would make most people just kind of,
stay in the snow.
Yeah, pretty much crap their pants. I mean, that would be pretty scary, I got to say. There's a lot of bad stuff that could happen to you 18 feet in the air coming down, I got to say.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm enjoying the Winter Olympics. It's a lot of fun. Well, kids out there, if you want to reach me, here is how. So you can reach me at my company, Robertson.com, Scott at Robertson.com, 2Ms, like communication.com. On the website, Robertson.com, 2Ms.com. And then the various social channels. You can reach me at Twitter at Robertson.com, Facebook.com/Robertson.com, all kinds of fun stuff like that. YouTube, we have a YouTube video channel as well up there. And of course, latest is that now we have this show up on the Periscope. And so for all you folks watching on Periscope, enjoy. Hope you, get something out of it and enjoying watching me and the fact that I have a giant cut on my chin because I cut myself shaving this week and it won't heal. I was telling the guys on the break that it's like the opposite of Wolverine's superpowers is that I can't seem to heal this tiny cut on my face, and I keep looking at it in the, the screen's pointing back at me. I'm like, that looks lovely. But that's what happened there. We won't have to go too much further into detail on that. But anyway, welcome to everybody that is enjoying the live stream on Periscope. I'm having a lot of fun doing that, and it's great. So today we're checking out episode number 77 of the Big Show, and this one I call "Love Letter to the Press." And mid-February is all about love. It's all about love, people. In today's world, the press really aren't getting much of it. They are squeezed to the breaking point by lack of money, lack of time, lack of respect, and the press are dwindling, and that's really not good for anybody. So this show is all about talking about some of those problems, but also showing some much needed love to the Fourth Estate, the news media. And of course, we'll also be talking about who's winning and losing throughout the course of the show. But let's dig into it first. Let's start off with that term, the Fourth Estate. So the Fourth Estate, or also called the Fourth Power, is a segment of society that wields an indirect but significant influence on society, even though it's not a formally recognized part of the political system. The most commonly recognized part of the fourth estate is the news media or the press. Actually, a lot of people don't know this, but the term the fourth estate derives from the European concept of three estates: the clergy, the nobility, and the common peoples. And the equivalent term fourth power is used in a lot of it's used throughout Europe. So anyway, that's what that comes from. The three sort of, it can also be described as like pillars of society kind of thing. So you've already learned something. We're just a few minutes into this damn show, and you're already coming out of this thing with some takeaway value that you can throw at somebody at a cocktail party and go, "Hey, you know what the fourth estate means?" And they'll be like, "I need to go get it. I need to refill my drink. See you later." Let's talk about the press. The press is great, but the press are great. The media are great, but they have a few problems. Number one, trust. Especially on the political side. There have been some questionable choices made. And, obviously now we have this term that we all know that President Trump coined called fake news. And, and President Trump wasn't necessarily gunning for the media, but he does have his eyes pretty wide open to the fact that some media in this country would rather he not succeed. And the fact that they did an independent study of his news coverage, and 91% of the coverage of the president of the United States is negative in tone. And I don't care who you are. I have a journalism degree from the University of Missouri, Columbia. It should not be 91%. If the media are doing their job, the tone, first of all, you shouldn't be able to discern that much tone in the press in the first place. The press are supposed to deliver the news. We had a show that discussed this, in detail. But because of that, trust numbers are plunging, and particularly with relationship to political commentary and political media. So basically, you have, I'll hit you with a few numbers. So according to the Edelman Trust Barometer, Edelman's one of the largest public relations firm in the country, and they do a trust barometer that asks all kinds of different questions about trust, right? But trust in media plunged from 51% 1 year earlier to 43%, which is a new all-time low for the index, right? So, I've heard it as low as 20%, especially when you start talking about trust in political opinions. But only 43% of people trust the media these days, and that's very low, the actual lowest since they started measuring it. And that's not good. That comes from questionable choices. That comes from questionable, stories that come out there. And it's like, for example, let's talk about Newsweek for a second. Good Lord, Newsweek. So Newsweek, which has a pretty iconic history as a news organization. I mean, I think they have an 8-decade history of reporting the news. But this past week, many of its top editors were fired. And they had just a maelstrom of controversy in the newsroom. What seemed to really be happening was the fact that the way that they were financing things, basically. So they were the company BuzzFeed News reported that the company engaged in fraudulent online traffic practices to help secure an online ad buy from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So that means they're inflating the numbers. They're inflating their numbers, and they're basically doing that. They're doing a lot of bad stuff. But there's editors that are falling in the wake of this stuff. But the issue boils down to kind of reckless management and basically looking for web clicks at the expense of integrity. And I think that's important to understand that news media have a choice to make. And the integrity part is a really that's what you're selling. That's what you're selling. That's what you're selling in the news business. You must have integrity. It's very, very important. Also, I noticed there's a new editor over at USA Today, and it's the editor in chief formerly from the Arizona Republic, who, which is interesting enough. In addition to being editor at USA Today, which seems like the editor in chief of USA Today, that'd be like a full-time job. But she is also going to continue to be editor-in-chief of the Arizona Republic. They're all sort of a, conglomerate family under Gannett. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. But lots of changes, and lots of bad choices, that sort of end up being responsible to this whole situation that we're talking about with all these problems. So the press have a few problems. Trust is one. Money is another one. Being able to, they wouldn't, if they weren't being pressed for money to keep the operation alive, they probably wouldn't be making the choices that they sometimes make and taking on influential partners who kind of expect something in return. Last problem that they're having is jobs. We've lost a lot of media in this country, and I don't think people know exactly how many. But newsroom jobs dropped last year 10.4%, down to, are you ready for this? Down to, there's only 32,900 full-time journalists at the 1,400 U.S. daily newspapers right now. Best numbers that we can find. So let's say you've got 33,000 people, doing this job. And then, man, that is just not very many at all. Public relations people outnumber those journalists about 5 or 6, maybe 7 to 1 right now. So for every one of me and other public relations people, or, for every one of them, every one journalist out there in the newsroom, there's 7 of me, and that's not good. That's too many of us in PR, but there's a better way to say it is there's too few of them is a great way to say it. So a lot of people don't know that we've lost 2/3 of our working press in the past 20 years due to financial cutbacks. So think about that. 2/3 of the profession are gone. And that, what that ends up being is now we have sort of conglomeratized news where the same script is basically put forward on the teleprompter and read in every major market across the United States that are part of these conglomerates. And I'm not talking about affiliates. I'm talking about conglomerates who actually control the news, control the message, and decide what's going to be on. And we have, commoditized news. You ever see Conan O'Brien when he does one of those segments and he pulls 10 clips from 10 different markets and they say the exact same thing? That scares most people, but the people in public relations, we understand that that's how it is. It actually makes it a little easier to do our job because if you get on one, you can be on 80. I'm just saying. So anyway, but jobs are another big problem that the press has been, facing. What is so great about the press? I get asked that sometimes, what is so great about them? Well, first of all, it's really important for business and for our society to have this. The press has this watchdog responsibility, to investigate, the mass media's influence on the ethics of public life is supposed to be characterized by the press's watchdog role in monitoring the conduct of government officials. And that is really assumed to be a very important part of our democracy. You start to get less people doing that job, or less people doing that job that have influence and have audiences behind them. It would become a great deal easier for some of our public officials to, distort the truth a bit, and we don't want that. We're a democracy that's based on truth, so it's very important. Number two thing that's so great about the press to me is that outside of politics, some of the questionable decisions that were made and those kind of things, we as a society, we trust the news, we trust reviews. These kind of things elevate brands. As a marketing communications person, professional, it's really important that we have the news media out there because advertising isn't believed. If you do your own posting and those kind of things, chances are that's not really believed, or it's not interesting enough to hold anybody's attention for very long. It's hard to be a media company, and the pace of change is incredible right now. So I think it's what's great about the press is the fact that it does still have some trust. And news media need to work as hard as they can to rebuild all of that trust back. And I think, I think, like I said, I think outside of, you almost have to kind of look at that in two buckets. The political side of, you have to look in kind of the political bucket and what's being said in terms of politics and those kind of things. And then the trust index kind of changes. But then you need to look at the regular part of the consumer or the business mass media news. And we still are basically trusting that, and again, it elevates brands. One cool statistic that I saw very recently, Procter & Gamble, who, as we all know, invented branding. There was a study that came out, and it said that Procter & Gamble found that its PR spending, earning its way into media stories, provided a 275% return on investment. 275% return on investment is good if you can get it in any investment, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what PR does, right? Because they're able to the news media are able to help them tell their story in a more powerful way than they could tell them themselves. And the last thing that I think is great about the press is that, the world's moving faster than ever. We need the press to kind of help us make sense of it for us. It'd be there's so much stuff going on. And the press can help us kind of compartmentalize and know what things are going on and how we can kind of make sense of our world. One kind of startling statistic that I saw recently was the fact that a lot of people were abandoning the media and using in a study that came out, some people using search engines to keep up with their news. First of all, it gives a lot of power to the search engines, in particular Google, and you got to watch companies like that because they don't have the same fourth estate position in society. They're a business, right? They're a for-profit business. They don't have, the responsibility side of it kind of locked down. So it'd be very easy for that to get corrupted. But I think, our media still play a very vital role. And later in the show, I'm going to give you some tips on how to work with our media, more effectively. But I think, we all need to think about the press and think about them in a way that is positive, and then the press in turn need to act in a way that's positive. Well, we're talking about love letters to the press, and it's all about love. So come on back in segment 2. We're going to talk about who's winning and losing on May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. See you in a few minutes.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Entertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EntertalkRadio.com.
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, everybody. You are tuned to May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. I am Scott. We're talking about how cool the press are and how much we love them and all that kind of stuff. We're going to take a short break in that, and we're going to talk about who's winning and losing this week. It's going to be exciting. Paul, what do you think? What's your feeling on the press? Do you get all your news from one source, or are you one of those search engine people who gets it all from the search engine?
I'm either out of my kind of news cycle is I'm out of the loop until something catches my attention, and then I don't believe what I read, and I just go to the craziest, most outlandish conspiracy theory sources to get my
nice. He's a conspiracy theorist.
Yep.
I like it. It's like in So I Married an Axe Murderer. The mother, she's like, I got to read the paper. And the paper's the National Enquirer.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, that's not the paper. That is not the paper.
Well,
anyway,
I mean, you check your Facebook feed sometimes. That's hard to tell apart from the National Enquirer.
Oh, I tell you, terrible. We can talk about Facebook and some of the algorithmic ways they piss people off later in the show. But anyway, right now, let's talk about who's winning and losing, and let's get right to it. This week, Gibson brands. I think we got to lead off with Gibson brands. Things aren't going so well for Gibson right now. Basically, the Nashville Post reports that Gibson brands is running out of time rapidly to resolve its debts. The renowned guitar maker ultimately needs to make $375 million in debt repayments by the 23rd of July. Otherwise, an additional $145 million is due. And you thought you had credit card problems, by the way. Got to say, $375 million. That's quite a chunk. And then $145 million, being due in this. And then Music Radar reports that failure to repay could even result in the departure of CEO Henry Juskowitz. If this ends in bankruptcy, according to Kevin Cassidy, a senior credit officer at Moody's, if this ends in bankruptcy, he will give up the entire company. So obviously some type of restructuring will be necessary. They say the core business is a very stable business and a sustainable one. But you have a balance sheet problem and an operational problem. Interesting. My biggest problem with this whole story is kind of what we're talking about today in the press, right? The fact that you go in this original story from the Nashville Post about Gibson running out of time, and then it's the Nashville Post. Gibson's in Nashville. And then there's a piece that says, the comments, the commentary by the company are, it was very difficult to reach the company. Let's see how they end up saying it. They always have some fun way to say it. And I can't find it in the story right now, but it basically was, the company could not be reached for comment. The company could not be reached for comment, or the company, refused to comment, something like that. But that's how they said the company could not be reached. And I just don't understand that. I got to say, from a public relations standpoint, even if the argument was, well, we thought they were going to write a negative story anyway, it's like, well, if you keep one hand on the steering wheel, you can still at least try to steer the story. You can still at least tell your side of it. And, highlight the positive things that are going on about the company, or even the positive things that are coming out from some of the business reports on the thing. I think if you don't call the press back, it's insulting to your hometown press, for God's sake. I mean, this is your hometown press. If anybody's sitting there with a Gibson pennant in their office rooting for you, it's going to be, it's going to be your hometown press. Just a little PR 101. You don't want to shut those people out. That's stupid and doesn't serve anybody. And it's just not, it's not the way to do it. And we're sitting here talking about the press. I have a lot of friends in the press, and they tell me all the time, I call companies and they won't return my call for a comment, right? If you have a public relations person that's saying we're not going to talk to the press, you should fire them yesterday. We absolutely take care of the press in good times, in bad times, in any times. It doesn't matter what times. We always take care of the press. We always take care of the press. Make a big sign and put it over your freaking door that says we always take care of the press. That is what we do in public relations. And I've been in plenty of boardrooms where the attorneys go, well, I don't know if we should make a comment because then people will think bad things. Hey, dumbass, they're thinking bad things right now. Guess what? And you know what the worst thing to have in a negative story is? You not returning phone calls. Because now if I'm an investor, I'm looking for the window. I'm looking for the window, smart attorney, just so you know. It's like, this is... To me, this is the most common sense kind of thing that can be, going on. But, and I like to point out just plain blatant stupidity whenever I see it in marketing communications so that the audience can tune in and not be stupid, right? If you're sitting in a room, say you're a CEO and you're sitting in a room and you have legal and you have PR there, and legal says, well, I don't think we should comment back to this reporter, and PR doesn't come after that attorney, in the room right there, then you got short-sighted bad legal counsel and you got no PR counsel. So you got a big ass problem on your hands. Here's how I handle this situation. If this is me, we talk to the press. We get them on the phone and we say, it's challenging right now. We have a statement on this. This is what we're going to try to do. This is our plan. Let's go out with what our plan is. Let's try to steer this story in some type of a positive direction rather than allow damning, terrible stories to just appear and us say nothing, And the reporter obviously tried very hard to get in touch with you. So you impeded the reporter from doing, his or her job. There's no excuse for it. There's absolutely no excuse for it. And I will debate anyone at any time on the validity of saying no comment in 2018. I will show you brands that have burnt to the freaking ground overnight because their stupid PR team was too afraid to talk about the truth. And that brings me to one other point too. Not all your news in public relations is going to be good news. Not all your news in your life is good news, by the way. Not all news from anyone is good news. But you engage. You talk about the bad news. You talk about challenges. I had a client just this week say, well, I don't know if we should really open up and talk about our challenges because, we all just want to tell good stories. And, we just want to tell good news stories about our company. I'm like, well, that sounds great. And it sounds like it probably would have worked great 20 years ago, but people are too savvy for it now, And I think by opening up and talking about your challenges is how you help people. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what the news media are trying to do anyway. They're trying to get stories out there to just like this podcast, to try to help people not do dumb things. Quite honestly. So anyway, I digress. But Gibson is losing not just for having the financial problems that it's having, but for the public relations strategy that it's employing in isolating the press on this kind of stuff. It's dumb. It's dumb. Call me. I can do better. I can do a lot better. Just so you know. Chipotle, which is frequently on the, losing side of things, definitely. They've picked a new CEO from right here in good old scenic and sunny Orange County. The new Taco Bell CEO, Brian Nicole. The Taco Bell CEO is now Chipotle's CEO. Thank you. We said it a little better. So they tapped a fast food veteran to try to revive the struggling burrito chain. Now, everybody knows that Chipotle is struggling because of a lot of food safety issues and a lot of brand damage because people are scared of their ability to wash their hands after going to the bathroom, and they're scared of their ability to be clean, I guess is a good way to say it. So Now, what's interesting to me is, you hire this guy from Taco Bell. Taco Bell has almost no food safety issues that, we can really think of. Certainly not as many as Chipotle. There may be maybe some back in the day or something, but not nearly as many as Chipotle, and a lot more locations. Taco Bell has a hell of a lot. There are a hell of a lot more Taco Bells out there than there are Chipotle Mexican grills, right? So I think that's a smart hire, because I do think that people are kind of looking around going, why can't Chipotle employees wash their hands effectively enough to not spread E. coli bacteria and give everybody food poisoning across the United States of America every single time? It's happened so many times. I've mentioned it so many times on this show. I should have a segment that calls, and this is how Chipotle screwed up this week, but it's like, you can't ignore that stuff. I think it's a smart hire. I think it's good to pull somebody in from a successful, fast food company that maybe, hasn't had as many food safety issues. So time will tell, but I like that hire. I'm going to put Chipotle in winning for the first time in years. Let's say that. I think we're all losing for this next one. There is a man who has built a organ out of Furbies. It's a creepy robotic toy from 1998. And this guy, which is a video that I cannot do justice for, actually. Just Google the Furby Organ, and you'll see it. But it's an organ that is made up. Each Furby has a note assigned to its little crazy pitch when it goes into its own little thing. And this guy's a bit of an eccentric anyway, but I think society may be losing because of the Furby Organ. But he turned 44 of them into a musical instrument. And it is really interesting. Like I said, just find it on YouTube. You'll enjoy it. Mashable did a piece on it as well. But basically the Furbies just kind of are singing and making all kinds of other crazy noise. Maybe you'll see the Furby Organ at the NAMM show next year. That'd be fun. It'd be fun. Go by, see it. It's super creepy next to you. There you go. Winning this week. Definitely CNET. CNET put out a video that I really enjoyed. That was basically its instructions on how to make Siri, Alexa, and the Google Assistant all talk to each other in an infinite loop. You have to see it. It's great because you have to do a lot of setup, right? You have to kind of get Siri to recognize Alexa's voice as the person that's giving the commands, and then you have to kind of and basically what they do is they get them all talking in this crazy infinite loop. So I like things that kind of stick it to AI. To be honest, I have a little bit of a thing there, so it made me smile. You'll enjoy it. But basically, if you have all three of these things, if you have like the HomePod with Siri, if you have something that has Alexa, and you have the Google Assistant and those kind of things together, you can get them all. You can get them all chatting it up, and it's a fun little party trick. Enjoy that. Please go check that out because it's very, very cool. And kudos for CNET for having the time to spend doing something like that. It's a very positive AI story, in my opinion. Google's winning this week because they are redesigning and rethinking email. First of all, did you know, digital marketers out there, that email actually has the greatest ROI in digital marketing right now? And that's good email, by the way. Good email that people want to receive, of course. Let's not confuse it with spam or with, like Musician's Friend who sends me 20 emails a week. There's no excuse for that, by the way. There's no excuse for sending out 20 emails. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're selling life-giving insulin. Nobody thinks about any one of its vendors 20 times in 1 week. I don't think about anything 20 times in 1 week. Maybe music. Maybe like music that I want to listen to and those kind of things. Maybe that. But man, it's just people drastically overestimating their importance. But Google has this thing called AMP, which is Accelerated Mobile Pages Standard. I like what they're doing. Basically, They only do this on Gmail right now, but they're basically finding a way to cache publisher websites, which they can deliver. They can deliver almost an entire website or a landing page or things you do on the web transparently inside of email, which means you wouldn't have to. And this sounds pretty cool, but you wouldn't have to necessarily leave the email to go do whatever you're going to do on the web. So they've found a way to kind of frame out different websites and be able to kind of push them via email. And Google, believes that by having this sort of, for lack of a better word, pushing out websites to people, that marketers will be able to use that, because basically you don't have to click on really anything. You can push landing pages, you can push other things that people need, and sort of reduce the number of clicks that it takes people to get there. So the thing's called Accelerated Mobile Page Standard, and it's pretty interesting. They've been doing it for a while. Google basically has figured out a way to kind of do this inside Gmail. So anyway, pay attention to that. It's kind of cool. You know what? Let's talk about Chloe Kim. Winning gold. At 17 years old, California snowboarder Chloe Kim, has won the Olympic gold medal. And basically, she's the first woman in history to land back-to-back 1080-degree spins at the games. And her final run, she nailed almost a nearly perfect score, 98.25. So, she's winning on a couple of ways. Obviously, winning for the United States of America, USA. Love that. But she also is going to be winning on the endorsement side of things, and the influencer side of things. There's a story in Adweek about it today, and it says that brands are going to want to capitalize on her gold. And on average, it says that they plan for endorsement deal size for Olympic athletes to double their pre-medal potential once they've won gold, which sounds pretty much like it should go. I mean, there should be a reward, for training so hard and dedicating your life to this sport. And everybody along the way, almost everybody along the way told you that this was a dumb idea, that you should get a job, that you should go to school, that you should kind of do all this. I mean, imagine that for every single one of these Olympic athletes. Imagine the reaction of your friends and family if you said, I'm going to go be a snowboarder. I'm going to go snowboard. And they'd be like, all right, Tiger. Well, that's who's winning and losing this week, folks. Come on back, and I am going to give you some valuable tips on how to work with those press who we're loving today. See you in a few.
I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Entertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EntertalkRadio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
May the best brand win with Scott Robertson's Music Biz Marketing Strategies. Now, here's your host, Scott Robertson.
Hey, everybody. You are back with May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media, the undisputed leader in music biz talk. I am Scott, still your host, remarkably, and we've been talking about the media and how much we love them. But first, we just finished up winning and losing. Let's bring in Paul B and talk about what he liked from that. Paul, how's it going?
Good. Well, first of all, the new CEO of Chipotle. I just need to know if he washes his hands before he goes to his job. I want to see like a video, like a little quick Instagram thing of him just washing his hands vigorously.
Dude, that should be that's what I would have done to open the press conference. He comes out and he's like a surgeon. He's like a surgeon in that little bowl or whatever, and he's like, "These hands are clean. I will wash the plague of Chipotle clean."
And then, of course, as a guitar player, the Gibson thing hits kind of close to home. I've been kind of annoyed with them for a long time.
Man, Gibson, man, that's that's a lot of problems going on, but certainly not calling back the press is not going to help. It ain't going to help you.
They've been doing a lot of weird things, apparently. Just buying up all these companies and then just running them into the ground. Like, why?
I know. Well, sometimes you win big with those things, and sometimes you don't, and sometimes there's something to be said for having your core business, and I think it comes down to what can you truly be great at.
The problem is their core business, in my opinion, went way downhill too. Their guitars, I feel like, are way overpriced for what they are. Like, there's so many new companies and builders that can build a guitar just as good or better for $1,000, a couple of $1,000. Every time you pick up a Gibson, they want like $6,000 for a guitar, and like, it's nice, but it doesn't feel like a $6,000 worth of anything in your hands. So,
I know a lot of people feel the exact same way about the guitars, and it's
and especially when you consider the legacy, like those old, the iconic ones from like the 50s, the 60s Les Pauls, they're just like, they're like the Ark of the Covenant or something. Like, they're
so true.
And those are amazing instruments. So like, when that's your legacy and then you just go flushing it down the drain like this, it's really sad.
Yeah. And another thing for the listeners out there, they unveiled the modern Flying V guitar this week. So if you follow the guitar news, and you might want to, they launched this new very different looking Flying V. I think they call it the modern Flying V or something. I saw some pictures. I'm
looking at it now. It kind of looks like a Star Trek. Looks like a Star Trek thing.
Yeah, Star Trek emblem a little bit. It does kind of.
Wouldn't it be ironic if they got sued now by Star Trek?
Star Trek's like,
you like lawyers, huh?
You're infringing on our intellectual property.
There you go.
Good work. Well, folks, and to all you in Periscope land, we're here in segment 3 of the show, and this is where I like to give you a few take-home value tips and tricks for you. So here we go. Segment 3. These are my tips for working effectively with the press. And we talked about, giving the press some more love. Very, very important. Number 1, you got to remember that it's a tough job. They have tight, really almost impossible deadlines. I work with journalists all the time, and they go, I got a deadline like by the end of the day, and I've got to have, 3 or 4 sources, cited on this thing. And they do some pretty remarkable stuff in a world where there's, less of them than ever. There used to be like, fact checkers and, copy editors and, all those kind of things. And all those people have gone away. So if you wonder, USA Today made a typo, it's like, because there's a fraction of the people doing the same job that, that still has to be done. And you basically just keep piling on duties to reporters and editors so they reach the breaking point. And that all comes from lack of funds or as some people would say, management of the media companies themselves, and be able to kind of employ professional from our perspective as marketers, as public relations people, we need to remember that it's a very tough job. They have very tight, impossible deadlines, and we need to help them as much as we can. I think that starts, as we alluded to in the last segment, when a company like Gibson gets a call from the Nashville Post, you get back to that reporter. If they say, we don't have enough people to do that, then fire somebody else who's just sitting around doing nothing, and put your resources in the right places. There's absolutely somebody whose job it is to be on top of this for the press, and they didn't get back to the reporter on purpose. And we all know it. And it's like, it's not good for people that have tough jobs and impossible deadlines when you don't get back to them. It's not good. Tip number 2, study. I always tell people kind of the least sexy part of public relations work is the fact that we do a ton of research. We study journalists. We study their needs, their patterns, all of these kind of things. I stalk journalists on Twitter and see what they're writing about, just for the idea of, hey, if I want to try to earn my way and be one of the stories that they're writing about, then I darn sure better know the last 10 things that they wrote about and also kind of, even beyond that, what worked, what didn't, for that, and kind of what things are they looking for? Are there patterns? Are there discernible patterns that you can find but from examining and looking at their work? So it's not just like, I think people have an idea that, you're a public relations person, you get your pitch together and you just start pitching, or you send the same pitch out to, 1,000 people and, hope that 10 of them bite on it. It's like, no. If you're doing the job right, what you should be doing is having your list of outlets, figuring out who writes about what is who's going to cover what you're doing, what this particular client, where that intersection is, and then doing quite a bit of research about into that reporter or into a group of reporters and see what, that's what's going to make your pitch stand out, because you're going to be able to say, hey, I noticed that, on this date you wrote about this, and this date you wrote about this, and this date you wrote about this, hey, I think I have a story, and then boom, 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 here's the, reasons why you should probably cover it. That approach is always going to get you a response from the journalist, because they know, A, you're not blasting them, you're not wasting their time, and you actually have taken the time to kind of get to know them a bit before you even, sent it. Remember we talked about, marketing's all about relationships, right? PR is definitely about relationships, and that's how you respect those relationships, by doing things like that. So very, very important. Number 3, don't aggressively sell to the press ever. Don't ever come in with an aggressive pitch and the press are taught throughout all journalism to sort of defuse your hype, to sort of roll their eyes and be that cynical kind of investigative watchdog. So when you say, we have the number one solution and it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread, they can tell you the day that sliced bread was invented and explain to you why sliced bread is actually better. Really, really important to pull your hype machine back. That big investor pitch that you went out in front and you got that big, I work with tech companies on this all the time, and they're like, yeah, well, we're going to change the world, and we're going to kind of do all that. Right. Great for the corporate retreat, fantastic for an investor pitch and those kind of things. But you save all that crap for some other audience, not the press. Because when you come in with an aggressive pitch like that, to the press, they're interested, but sort of for the wrong reasons. They're interested now because now they want to prove you wrong. They want to make you look stupid. They want to, give you something to think about, and you don't want them to give you something to think about in front of their audience. If you're pitching, USA Today and you go in pitching something, hard and heavy, it could definitely result in the fact they decide to do the story and decide to just sort of make fun of you, and make fun of the story and that kind of thing. It can happen. Public relations goes either way, right? We're at the mercy of what the journalist wants to deliver to their audience. and that's sometimes that makes people very uncomfortable about public relations. They get burned before, they, one other thing never to do, by the way, is if you happen to be an advertiser in a particular publication, let's say you advertise in Guitar Player, and Guitar Player reviews your product, and it's not, necessarily a favorable review, or they found a few dings in it, right? They found a few dings. The last thing in the world that you ever want to do, remember relationship business, remember they are relationship, right? Last thing in the world that you want to do is contact them and say, well, I advertise and you guys owe me a great review and this kind of thing. And I was really surprised, and and I'm really upset with you, and I'm going to pull my advertising contract and all those kind of things. Because most journalists will say, I don't care. I want to care, but it's not my job to care. It's my job. It's not my job to care about your marketing budget or your advertising budget or anything like that. That's a completely different section of things for us. That's not what we do here, And again, don't forget, they're protecting their credibility. They, have a duty to protect their own credibility in this equation. And, it works out for everybody better if advertising is kind of kept in its box and public relations, earned media, editorial is kind of kept in its box. I find that when you start to blur them, don't forget we're going to the media because we want trust and credibility. The last thing in the world we want people to find out is that, that credibility and those things that we're spending all of our time earning our way in there. We certainly don't want to find out that some other company bought its way in and got it. And the publication damn sure doesn't want that to come out, because then people don't believe you, and you've got that. Remember that trust problem that we talked about in the open. We do everything for trust. And this, public relations exists because we, in terms of going forward with influencers and media that we believe can be trusted sources of information. The minute they lose that trust, PR's out. Sorry, we're going somewhere else. But so that's tip number 3. Don't ever aggressively sell to the press, and you shouldn't have to. You really shouldn't have to. Some of the best PR people I know are people who think like a journalist. I know you need this. I know you're looking for this asset. I know that you need, these videos and these images and these specifications and these kind of things, and you need it by 5 o'clock today. Okay, no problem. Here's all that stuff as easy as possible. And to make it easier for you, you can actually just take my copy and run right with it, because it's not filled with a bunch of investor deck bullcrap that you're going to have to edit out. The more that press have to edit your stuff and edit your hype out, by the way, even the fact that I've seen press releases start that we are so pleased to announce this today. No one cares if you're pleased. No one could give a crap at your emotional state, at whether you're pleased, whether you're excited. Nobody gives a crap. Tell us what you got. Do it fast. Tell us what you got. Do it fast. Get there. Get there. I've seen, even at this past NAMM show, I was looking at some people's press materials, and I saw one press release for a new, I think it was a power amp or something, and it was like 5 pages long. 5 pages long, ladies and gentlemen. 5 pages on a power amp. All right, that's torture in some countries to have to read 5 pages about a power amp. If you can't get that crap done in a page and a half, then you have too many quotes from a CEO that wants to see themselves quoted. And you need to get that garbage out of there and get there, right? Look at, as a primer, just for an example, look at the coverage where your stuff's going to ultimately end up. Is it going to be 5 pages of coverage on your power amp? No. Is it going to be a paragraph or 2 paragraphs about it? Yes. So why would you write more than a few paragraphs? Think about it, people. Think about it. It's really, really important. The thinking, that's important. Tip number 4, when you commit to something, follow through. I had a client that we had a reporter coming over from China to do a story, and then the client, the client, so the reporter gets to Los Angeles from China to do a feature story on this client. They've flown from China. Imagine that. Imagine that flight, right? You've flown here. You've gotten the assignment from your editor. You've spent a bunch of money. You've flown here for the client. And then the client, sends a text that day and says, I'm sorry, I got called out of the country. I'm not going to be able to do the interview. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And this happened on my watch. I fired that client. That day for that, because, we're in a relationship business. This person sat in a plane for, 18 to 20 hours, and you can't be bothered, to come do the interview. It's like, you deserve whatever is going to come next, in that relationship. You deserve it, but I'm not going to be around for it, because I honor my commitments to journalists every single time. Really, really important. I did a whole show on about firing the client and that sort of thing. But when you commit to something, if you say you're going to be somewhere, if you say your CEO is going to be speaking somewhere, if you say you're going to do these things, follow through. Again, recognize that you're talking about people that have jobs to do, important jobs. Very, very important. How's my clock looking there, Paul? Just so I know. All right, cool. So tip number 5, again, you're working with journalists and they're people. So don't be afraid to have fun working with them. I know so many folks that are so scared of talking to the journalists because everything's on the record and everything's it's like journalists aren't looking to out you, and they're out you in whatever machinations of grandeur that you have going on. They have other companies to cover and other things to deal with. They're people, and they're fun people. I love going to events and hanging out with journalists because they have great stories. They're just a whole lot of fun. So don't be afraid to have fun working with them and be fun. I send out April Fool's things, from my clients' announcements, and sometimes people cover those and I think it's cool. So what have we learned today, folks? We know that the fourth estate is very important and we want to love them, but there are serious challenges that remain in terms of rebuilding trust and designing the right business models, that are actually going to make enough money to pay and, retain those quality reporters and editors. But we need that watchdog. We need the anti-hype machine out there to make sense of our world. And PR really counts on the media as a vehicle for building trust and elevating brands. And that's the way it is. That's it for me, marketing fans. Until next week, this has been Scott Robertson, host of May the Best Brand Win on Entertalk Media. Have a great week. We'll see you next week with a fresh show. Take it easy, Periscope. Later. Bye-bye. You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Entertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?